Test. Sorry. Hello. There we go. It's one way to get everyone quiet.
Hi, how's everybody doing? So we are technically still in session from a meeting we had before. So welcome to all of our honorees this evening. And I'm going to pass this right over to Mr. LePage and let him take us through the group.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Tyrell. Welcome, everyone, special guests, retirees. Our new Teacher of the Year is with us tonight as well. And between the group of people here tonight, we have hundreds and hundreds of years of collective experience and contributions to the town of Plainville and Plainville Community Schools and the children who have attended here over the many years that our retirees represent. In order to help me with all of the acknowledgements and honors for our outstanding retirees, I'm going to ask our principals to come up and say a few words about the different members of this graduating class of 2021. So at this time, I'm going to start with Mr. Batchelder. If Mr. B, if you would come up and introduce your retirees, and that would be wonderful.
I'm going to take my mask off. Thank you, Mr. LePage. Good evening, Board of Ed members and everybody here tonight and all of our distinguished guests. We have two Wheeler staff members who are retiring. Both have worked at Wheeler for the last 43 years. And we'll start with Mrs. Carol Acoustic. Anyone who serves as an outstanding educator, more specifically a tutor, for 43 years in the same school truly adds new dimensions to the words dedication and commitment. Carol, you certainly epitomize these two qualities. If you view Mrs. Acoustic's 15-minute retirement video, this collection of well wishes from current and former Wheeler staff reveals several clear and consistent characteristics of Mrs. Acoustic. The video highlights how she positively impacted multiple generations of teachers, support staff, students, and parents. Mrs. Acoustic's colleagues will greatly miss her. They'll greatly miss her high level of instructional prowess, her warmth, pretty smile, and love for children, her flexibility, highly skilled classroom support and wisdom, and her reliability as a charter champion for all of us each and every day. She made everyone at Wheeler School feel honored, heard, respected, and cared for. One current Wheeler teacher said this about Mrs. Acoustic, and she will probably be able to determine who I'm quoting. And I'll give you a hint. I think she's here tonight. I'm so lucky to have worked with Mrs. Acoustic. Mrs. Acoustic has been in my classroom for the majority of my 9 years at Wheeler. It wasn't often that I wrote her name, but when I did, I spelled it wrong. For the last 9 years, I have spelled her name wrong, with just one C instead of two. I was so focused on not spelling acoustic that I never realized she had two C's in her name. It wasn't until recently when someone tactfully pointed it out to me, and when I told her I had 9 years of apologies for her, Carol just smiled and said, "I thought you may have spelled it wrong," and assured me it was okay. And that would be just like Carol. From me to you, Carol, I will greatly miss your smile, positivity, warmth, and wonderful sense of humor. You have an admirable way of approaching challenges and any perceived negativity by moving your mindset and that of those around you to one of positivity and confidence. You have been an outstanding reading teacher, and you excelled in ensuring that struggling readers made progress. Carol, you have been an integral part of shaping the positive familial culture that exists at Wheeler today. You will be greatly missed, but I do look forward to seeing you take longer walks with your best friend, Mary Ann, former Wheeler tutor. I hope to join you both for a couple laps around the Wheeler track. Congratulations on your retirement, Carol.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a hug.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we're on to Mr. John Procco. And it's by sheer coincidence that Mr. Procco, like Mrs. Acoustic, also served 43 years at Wheeler School. They both have positively impacted Wheeler School and have made equally incredible leaders in the school and as people whom we admire. This is what Scott Martin, director of the custodians in Plainville, who could not be here tonight, had to say about John. John Procco has been a devoted employee to the staff and students of Wheeler Elementary School for 40 plus years. John treated the building as if it were his personal residence. He would often check in on the weekends and on his own time just to make sure everything was fine or to avoid any call-ins during the middle of the night. This dedication exemplifies the kind of person John is. He took his responsibilities seriously and always wanted to make sure everything was good to go for the start of the school day. John was not only an employee to me, I considered him a friend and someone I could talk to when I needed some advice about an issue or a dilemma I was wrestling with. He was someone I looked up to and appreciated having around. I miss seeing him in the halls and can only hope to have others like him in the future. I recently spoke with him, and now he's moving to Florida to be closer to his family. I wish him and Joan the very best in many years of happy retirement. Thank you, John, for the man you are, and thanks for all you did for Plainville Community Schools. So I echo those same sentiments and views about Mr. Procco. While I will miss many things about John, what I will miss the most is his dry sense of humor and his uncanny ability to always know when I was going to forget something. Perhaps it was due to his recognition of the fast pace in which I was moving around the building on a given day, or simply his deep understanding of the role of a principal and the balls one juggles throughout the day. In either case, I will miss the teamwork Mr. Procco and I shared in order to keep our school organized and safe for everyone in it. Mr. Procco has shared pictures with me of himself and his wife Joan visiting their children and grandchildren in Florida. Mr. Procco has a look on his face that I've never seen before. It is a look of genuine happiness and content. I thought John would be the type of man, given his incredible work ethic, who would need to be constantly doing something. I was very wrong. I wish John the very best with his big move to Florida and to enjoy every day with his wife and family relaxing in the sun. Gosh knows, John, you more than deserve it. Thank you for being a great person, custodian, and a great support and friend to me. Congratulations on your retirement. Thanks, John.
Next, I'm going to ask Mr. Johnson, high school principal, to come up and introduce his graduates, his retirees from Plainville High School. Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'd like to recognize Mrs. Denise Jacobson and Mrs. Maria Colangelo. And I'll start with Denise Jacobson. Tonight, we recognize Denise Jacobson, a school counselor at PHS who is retiring after 21 years of service to the students and families of PHS. As a school counselor, Denise helped thousands of students toward reaching their college or career goals. She is an empathetic listener and effective communicator whose door was always open. She took pride in seeing her students succeed and hearing about their accomplishments after high school, always keeping tabs on students after they had left PHS and providing us with numerous updates. Denise served as co-instructional leader of the department for a period of time. In this capacity, she helped to unite the department, strengthen the programming offered for our students. Her leadership during this time was critical to the development of our school counseling program. For many years, Denise oversaw the Scholarship Awards Night, which is known as the Night of Excellence. There's a tremendous amount of work involved in making this night happen. From the countless hours contacting and working with donors to tracking down students to get them to apply for scholarships, often visiting English classrooms over and over again to get students to apply. Denise and her attention to the smallest details has been essential to making this night a true success for many years. She grew this night into what it is today, becoming one of the premier events of senior year and also at PHS. Each year, she also led the planning of the college fair at PHS, helping an untold number of students find new experiences or organizations for their post-secondary education. She also was a major part of the Career Day Committee at PHS. She helped this event grow into what it has become today, one of the highlights of the year for our students, and helping so many of them find more direction in their post-secondary lives. I want to thank Denise for her years of dedicated service to PHS. We wish you well as you retire. You will truly be missed here at our school. Thank you. Tonight from PHS, we are also recognizing Maria Colangelo, who retired in August after 29 years of teaching at Plainville High School. I should have mentioned both of these people had time before Plainville High School, but we're not going to count that because they weren't Blue Devils yet. So, during her time at PHS, she served our school in multiple capacities as a teacher. She taught courses in English and also taught English during summer school. Chris wanted me to make sure I added that, Maria. She also helped to develop our English language learner program while at PHS. Most notably, though, she will be remembered as a teacher of Italian to countless students here at Plainville High School. Her love of all things Italian was infectious and one of the most valuable lessons she passed on to her students. As is our hope with any language class, she was able to not only teach students the traditional language components of the course, but more importantly, fostered a love of a culture outside their own. Due to this, she had a cult following among students, maybe being proudest when she had taught an entire family's children. In 2018, she was recognized as the Plainville Community Schools Teacher of the Year, a well-deserved honor. During her time at PHS, she led the creation of the Student Rocks Award, which is still given out at Plainville High School to this day. She was also heavily involved in the planning and execution of the Interact Senior Prom each year. She established the chapter of the Italian National Honor Society at PHS and advised the club until she retired. She also was a prominent member of the Career Day Committee, especially in recruitment of community partners. In fact, I think in some years when I first got here, there was more people related to her or knew her than didn't. She was also an avid supporter of Plainville athletics, attending as many contests as she could and constantly asking students for updates. While these courses and programs that she either assisted with or created on her own still exist at PHS, she is already missed. It wasn't the same this year without Maria in our building and in our school lives. I want to sincerely thank Maria for her years of dedication and service to our students and families at PHS. Thank you.
Sorry, the mask is on and off. It's kind of a strange situation. We're in a school, but there aren't any children here. So I would say that it's pretty optional right now. If you're vaccinated and you'd like to take your mask off, you know, I'm fine with you doing so. They've kind of left it a little bit of a gray area, but there are no children here who would not have the opportunity to be vaccinated. So I will say that it's up to you if you're comfortable doing so. And if the health director calls me later, I'll have to deal with that, but I'm okay. All right. Let's see. So we have done Wheeler in the high school. a little build up here. We have a couple of principles that I have to talk about in a minute here, but I just want to make sure I'm not leaving anyone out. Okay, so quite a large list here. All right. Well, I'm going to have, if you don't mind, I'd like to have the principals say their part for the people who are retiring, and then I'll talk about the principal, because, you know, if I do it the other way around, you may just walk out before you pretty much done. So I'm going to ask Principal Lynn Legoik to please come up and talk about the Tafalon graduating class of 2021. And then I'll talk about her.
Good evening. Tonight I have two folks to talk about. One is here and the other is not. So I'm going to start with Vanessa Bedford. She's a paraprofessional at Tafalon School, and she couldn't make it tonight because she is starting her vacation. So good for her. Vanessa Bedford has been a paraprofessional at Tafalon for the past 24 years. She was one of the first people that I hired when I arrived, and she was a great choice for a rookie principal. Vanessa has always worked supporting students who needed extra help. Actually, that doesn't quite really do it justice. Paraprofessionals do so much in our school that it's hard to describe all that they do. Although she worked with all grades, most of her work was mostly with 4th and 5th graders. Sometimes students in those grades aren't especially interested in working closely with someone, even if they are helping with the hard stuff. She's a good listener who serves as a helper, a mentor, a parent, a friend, an advisor, a coach, a cheerleader, any of those, depending on the need. Vanessa has a special way with students, quickly earning their trust and working her way into their hearts. One teacher recently told the story of the time that one of her 1st graders wet herself. Yes, that happens more often than you would think. Luckily, it's usually only the kids that do that. This poor little girl just panicked and didn't want anybody's help. When she yelled out, "I want my grandma," Vanessa quickly jumped up exclaiming, "I'm a grandma, come with me." And she saved the day. I always appreciated that I could count on Vanessa's good judgment, calm personality, and reliability. Last year, Vanessa chaperoned a field trip with a classroom teacher and 16 4th graders. It was a trip to the energy plant, and the place would only take one class at a time. Unfortunately, the teacher took ill on the trip. No worries, she turned out to be fine. But during the trip, she fainted and had to be transported to the hospital. You can imagine the scene when the kids saw their beloved teacher being taken out by an ambulance. When Vanessa called the school to share what happened, I offered to go right down there and help her out. And she assured me that she had calmed everyone down and that they'd be getting back on the bus as soon as they finished their trip. Actually, I don't know if you remember this. Okay, actually, Mr. LePage did race out there to meet with her. And when she returned, she said that, it was awfully nice of him, but like me, he really wasn't needed, and she had it all under control. That was all a day's work for Vanessa. I'm sorry that Vanessa couldn't be here tonight because she deserves plenty of thanks for her hard work, reliability, and dedication over the past 24 years. But of course, we wish her all the best in her retirement. Vanessa Bedford. You want me to take her gift?
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I've learned always to open gifts when you get them because the kid once gave me ice cream. So, all right. Next, we're going to talk about Betsy Neve. Let me tell you a little bit about Betsy Neve, 1st grade teacher extraordinaire. Betsy recently decided to retire, so I don't have all the facts and figures on her career, but I know she was already in Plainville when I arrived 24 years ago. And I meant to ask her over dinner tonight, and I forgot. So how many years? It's a big number for 1st grade. So I do know that she's had a long and distinguished career in Plainville as well. For most of the time I've known Betsy, she taught 1st grade with a few dips into 2nd. Betsy also was a teacher of the year a few years back as well. Betsy does all the great things that most 1st grade teachers do. She teaches kids to read, she teaches math and all that stuff. But what Betsy does is even more magical than that. When folks started talking about teaching the whole child and later teaching social emotional learning, they must have been peeking into Betsy's room. Betsy not only teaches the whole child, she nurtures and cherishes every whole child. So if you were to peek into her room, you'd see the usual first grade chaos that makes up any good first grade classroom. Loose teeth, missing pencils, misbuttoned shirts, shoes off, complaints about who's touching whose stuff, half-eaten snacks, and plenty more. But in Betsy's room, you'd see magic beyond that. You'd see Betsy teaching reading and writing to kids, not just because they have to learn it, but because it's joyous, interesting, and exciting. I've always loved visiting her class during writing time, especially, because Betsy knows that kids can't write their stories until someone helps them to discover their voice and nurtures their skill at looking at the world through eyes filled with wonder. Isn't that what you want for every 6-year-old, every 16-year-old, or even every 60-year-old? In Betsy's room, a feather found on the playground is worth an exploration of how it got there and what it tells about the bird who left it behind. Animals, rocks, bugs, deer sightings, pets, hikes in the woods, a cool leaf, pretty much anything from the natural world is cause for deep discussion. Her students learn to use their voice to tell their stories. It could be to celebrate how they rode a bike without training wheels, or to tell about helping to wash the kitchen floor, or a late night visit by the tooth fairy, or a tent sleep out in the yard. It could also be about the fears, worries, adventures, and hard times of kids' lives. There's always a story to be discovered and to be written about. Betsy knows that her students need encouragement to meet the challenges of being 6. There's always praise for being brave. One time that I stopped in, I had to smile as kids were cheering for their friend who was brave enough to go talk to the parent volunteer at Tiger Mart to exchange a light-up keychain that didn't light up. After all, he spent 40 Tiger tickets on that keychain. Her classes celebrate their struggles and successes like no other. This is just one piece of the social emotional learning that Betsy does so well. Despite being on leave of absence this past year, Betsy met with her previous students online weekly to help them to stay connected and to share their lives with her. They got to joyously share games, pets, favorite toys, and experiences, while Betsy shared news of bears in her yard, adventures in the woods, and talks with her friend Bob, her husband. As you peek into Betsy's career, you need to know that there's more to her than all that. Betsy is a trained reading recovery teacher and is a mentor to many others. Her colleagues hold her in the highest regard because they know that she's a generous partner in education who will always support other educators. I know a principal who came to rely heavily on her calm, reasonable, honest clarity and intelligence, and that principal might be me. There's more to Betsy than her time in the classroom. She and her husband Bob are published authors who write travel guides. I enjoyed her guide to Ireland since it was fun to pick out Betsy's voice whenever they wrote about places that kids would especially like. She's a world traveler who is a true pleasure to talk with. I think she's got pieces of her heart all over the globe, but especially in Ireland, France, maybe Spain. And then there's the year she lived in India. She's got a great story about a camel she met. And since she was so fond of this camel, the owner offered her a bit of it when it became dinner. Remember? I wish Betsy and her husband Bob many years of adventures, stories, and chances to be brave. She has given a great deal to the children of Plainville, and her retirement is a great loss to Tafalon. Betsy truly is a special person and a gifted, compassionate teacher of young children. Many lives have gotten off to a good start under Betsy's care. She is one of the smartest, wisest, kindest people I know, and she will be missed at Tafalon.
That's a tough act to follow, Ms. LeQuick. And I have to talk about you. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, so. All right, so I normally write these, let's just call them lengthy speeches and presentations, call it what it is. I just have, I just knew there was no way to keep up from the retirement party that happened for Lynn a couple weeks ago over at Hawks Landing, all the adventures and all of Lynn's fun stories from the Wheel of Wow. I kind of want to have you tell a couple of those here, but I know we don't have time. So Lynn had some other jobs before Plainville, but we won't talk about those, and Cromwell and in Meriden, parochial too, I believe. Yep. So Lynn's been at this game of education and leading for quite some time. She was hired here in Plainville in 1997 as principal to the land of Toffalonia, which I like to call it, Toffelon, Lewis Toffelon Elementary School. And I love the story that I did get to share at Lynn's retirement celebration, where they were walking around the neighborhood trying to get votes for the referendum for the renovation over there. And a student came running up and I said, "I know you. You're the princess of Toffelon." So ever since then, she's been considered the princess of Toffelon, and she fits it well. No crown, but all the other qualities of majesty and generosity and kindness and compassion and taking care of her people. So Lynn brings, if you don't know Lynn, you've missed out, but she brings incredible energy and passion to everything she does, and a love of learning, a love of reading, a love of education in general. And that leadership is just so alive in everything she does, whether it's doing instructional rounds or just stopping in classrooms. She's always nice enough to invite me to come out and deliver tiger paws, or I can never remember the tiger tags, or, golden paws, you name it. It has to do with a tiger. She's going to celebrate it. Silly stripes, whatever they are. I appreciate that because, Lynn is just she's so loved by the students. So when you go around the school, you feel like kind of, second fiddle next to her, but it's amazing. Adored by the kids, adored by the staff. And that became so clear to me when I was at her school the other day, and a gift arrived, a very nice potted plant and a card. And it was from a group of graduates from Toffelon from about, 15, 18, 20 years ago. So there were kids that graduated high school probably 8 or 9 years ago, and they all chipped in and sent her a retirement gift and beautiful words about how she had impacted their life way back when they were in Toffelon. So I just think that kind of says it all. But I'll say a little more because that's what I do. Lynn's pride in Toffelon is just, it's almost competitive. It is competitive, right, Andrew? Let's just face it. And Andrew talked about in his video he made, at the Superintendent Awards, she'll always say she kind of goes around and she wants to know where all the high school honorees are from, what school they went to. Oh, Toffelon, huh? Oh, Toffelon, what do you know? They weren't always all from Toffelon, but she made it feel that way no matter what. Just a lot of pride in all the great work happening at Toffelon. And that pride will live on. And I know Alicia's going to do a great job, and she's got Lynn's mentorship and friendship that will help guide her. But a couple of things you may not know about Lynn. I'll save some of the jokes I used at the retirement thing. It's a mixed crowd here, but Lynn is going to be consulting with us when she retires, so she's not really going very far, at least for a little while. Couple ways she's going to consult. If you don't realize, Lynn has an electric bike, so we're going to hang some signage on the sides to advertise free pre-K for all. So she's going to drive around town on that and do a little advertising for us, which we appreciate. But on a serious note, she's going to be consulting about our PBIS systems and all the work that we're doing for tiered interventions for kids. And really, she's excited about that and focusing on that and helping us with our next steps in that work. So little consulting gig for Lynn after she retires over the fall, summer and fall, early fall. I am a little jealous of Lynn right now, not just because she's retiring. She showed me a picture of her new truck earlier today. So, picture Lynn like this monster truck. It's a big truck. It would make Carl look small, but it's a good sized truck. And, it's right, Carl, it's a nice truck. And she comes, she tells me about the new truck she bought over the weekend. She says, and it's got a big engine. So, it's a F-150, but it's all souped up. And she's not only did she buy a truck, but she's going to be pulling a camper around the country and seeing seeing America from a different lens. So Lynn's traveled the world and with Alex and had some great adventures. And I know a lot more adventures are coming. So I wish you all the very best in visiting your good friends and your goddaughter down is Maryland. I always get it wrong. Yeah, Maryland, and your extended friends and family around the country. If you ever want to hire me to like help you out with, I like to camp, so I'm a good cook. But I hope your wheel of wow continues and you make more adventures and stories to tell. We're gonna miss your sense of humor. You're the funniest person I ever met. You're a very funny person, so we're gonna miss that. Alex, I wish you very good luck. I think you're gonna need it. And I hope you have a wonderful life, and you're not going far, but thank you for your friendship. Also, Lynn's been incredible. When I need someone to pick me up, I go see Lynn. So, all right, I'll stop now. Thanks, Lynn. It's an ice cream sandwich. All right. So I think I'll do the same thing for Matt. Matt, I know you have quite a few people to talk about from MSP, so I'm going to ask Ms. Guarino to come up, and I'll save your words till the end as well.
Okay. Hang on a sec. So I was, Steve had mentioned this earlier, and there are 6 of us leaving the middle school. I'm going to talk about 4 people, and Vicky's going to talk about 1, and then including me. And you add all of that up, and there's over 140 years of teaching experience leaving our middle school this year. It's an incredible amount of devotion and dedication to the school. So it's just amazing. I'm going to start with Cindy Birdsall, who's not here today. She's also been able to start her vacation a little earlier today. Cindy has made a wonderful impact on the health and lives in general of Plainville youth for decades. She taught health and physical education in Plainville for 35 years. And over the years, she also coached the varsity girls basketball team, JV volleyball, JV softball, and the unified basketball teams. She was also a class advisor, organized and ran intramural programs, organized the Students Against Drunk Driving chapter, and was an advisor for the Student Athlete Leadership Program. We at MSP have been so fortunate to have Cindy complete her career as a health educator at the middle school of Plainville. While at the high school and the middle school, she was involved in organizing a number of fundraiser events as well. Throughout her career in Plainville, she shared that she is blessed to have so many amazing memories from the classroom to the courts to the fields. She shared that her mornings began with smiles and laughter and continued all day long. She told me that that one of the things she has said to Melanie Olmstead, her fellow health teacher at MSP, many times was, "We should write a book." And the statement "out of the mouth of babes" is absolutely true when you're teaching health to middle school students. I typically would walk in the classroom, see some picture of human anatomy on the board, and turn right around and go right back out again. Said, "I'm so glad you guys are doing this." She said she cannot recall a particular favorite memory over the years, as there have been so many, but she did say that the joy of experiencing her students change from year to year has always been a highlight. Attending graduation and watching seniors walk across the stage has always made her so proud to be in this career. And wherever you are today, Cindy, we thank you. I'm also going to take a minute to thank Joyce Lynch. Joyce did retire last summer, late in the summer, and she also is not able to be with us here today. So I was not able to speak to her very recently, but what I can say is that I was so fortunate to have worked with her for 14 years at the middle school of Plainville. Her encyclopedic knowledge of young adult literature was astounding. Her book talks to the middle school students were legendary. She made everyone want to read every book she talked about. She also had an amazing ability to be able to match up just the right book with each student or adult who asked her for a reading suggestion. She gave me many suggestions, some great books over the years. Her excitement about reading was contagious. In addition, she was a tremendous resource for our faculty in the areas of research, both traditional and on the internet, as well as a help with the latest technological tools for delivering instruction more effectively. Joyce's last year was a very difficult one for her. With the COVID pandemic beginning, she, along with all of us, faced that very challenging year. But on top of that, she lost her beloved husband, Richard, after a long and courageous battle with cancer. But throughout all of this, Joyce was at work, available and encouraging to our students. We miss Joyce's passionate presence at MSP, but are happy she is now able to spend time on her own with her children and grandchildren. Thanks, Joyce. Sue Butler. Sue Butler, math teacher extraordinaire, has taught math taught at the middle school for 22 years. She taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math and has coordinated our math SRBI program for many years. I will also personally remember her as my son's favorite math teacher at the middle school, favorite teacher at the middle school of Plainville. Sue shared with me that she will never forget the welcoming that she received her first day at MSP. Jane Wilson, and many of you remember Jane, was the first person to reach out to Sue and offer any help that she might need. Sue said that this caring and welcoming nature of the folks at MSP was always there and such an important part of what makes middle school a great place to learn and teach. Sue remembered one particular example of that caring of MSP teachers, and when leaving school one afternoon a few years ago, she saw MSP science teacher Dave Moore hanging out with some students from Hartford and sharing pizza with them. Wondered why he was there. Well, he was staying after school with them until an MSP dance started hours later that evening, because it would have been very difficult for many of the students to go home after school and then get a ride to and from the dance. Dave volunteered to stay and personally splurged on some pizza for everyone. Sue's future plans include spending time in Florida during the colder months so she can play pickleball, whichever that is. I'm not really sure, but sounds fun, and golf, swim, and eat outdoors. She will also be spending time at her family's new restaurant, Seed 41 in Collinsville, Connecticut, and it's really great. You should go. So Sue, wherever you are in the future, I am sure your kind and caring ways will always make all of those around you feel as loved as we have all felt in your presence at MSP. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, and before I forget, I just want to also give my personal thanks and congratulations to all the retirees tonight. You know, I'm in good company. Some personal thanks in particular, again, to Sue for being such a wonderful teacher to my children. John for his friendship and companionship when we were at Wheeler. I think we were the only men there for a little while, for about a couple of years. Lynn for being an inspiration and a mentor as a principal. Appreciated. Very much. But now I'm going to talk just a little bit about Diane. Diane Rotier, the team mom of MSP. Diane has been teaching for 29 years, the last 20 of which at the middle school of Plainville. Since getting her college degree in 1983, Diane has taught everything from first grade to high school. She has taught in Maine, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and even Guantanamo Bay. That is where she met her husband, Rick. Married for 30 years, they have 2 sons, Michael and Andrew, also both graduates of the Plainville Community Schools. At MSP, Diane has been a reading and language arts teacher in grades 7 and 8, a team leader for most of that time at MSP, the faculty parent teacher club representative for over 18 years, a yearbook advisor, as well as a track coach and swimming and diving coach. For this last year, Diane has done a marvelous job coordinating remote learning support for our students at MSP. In retirement, Diane plans to travel, including a road trip across the USA, visiting national parks. Maybe you'll run into the Lagoiks along the way, as well as trips to Ireland, Europe, and Southeast Asia. In addition, she will be enjoying time at her family cottage, traveling to see her children and her extended family, and she plans on volunteering in some capacity. Wherever you are, those around you will be so very fortunate to be with you, and we will miss you at MSP. Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much.
Vicky, are you gonna, did you have some? Yeah. Yeah, would you mind? I want to make Matt wait a little longer. Yeah. Until we're done with MSP.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd really like to talk about Nancy Brown, who was a paraprofessional in our district for 30 years. She started in 1991 at Wheeler School and was there for 21 years until just as I was becoming director, I begged her to please help a student transition to our middle school. And for those of you who know Nancy, she's a really big personality and a little package. So at just under 5 feet tall, she was very nervous about going to the middle school because all of the kids were going to be bigger than her. And yet she was able to find a new passion to working with kids. I actually first met Nancy when she was working with Mr. Garino, when Matt was a special education teacher and she was the resource teacher. And really, she has become she was an amazing team member for our special education teachers. It's very interesting to watch her with children, again, at less than 5 feet tall, looking up at the children and really, making sure that they knew that they were respected and honored. She's got a great personality, very funny, lots and lots of great funny stories that she'll tell about children, and really wanted to make sure that every student was well connected to our school. And so Nancy's not here this evening, but we do wish her good luck in her retirement.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. While I'm up here, we also had last fall the retirement of Sophia Palkowski. Also spent a significant amount of time at Wheeler Elementary School, 20 years in total here in our district, and 16 of them at Wheeler. When I asked for some background about Sophia, the HR said that she had 12 different positions in our district. And I think that really describes Sophia and her commitment to Plainville schools. While she worked primarily at Wheeler School, she also worked summer school, she worked after school programs, she worked, I believe, with some of the early childhood preschool programs, and really spent lots of time in many different places here in our district. She was one of our very first bilingual staff, being bilingual Polish. And so she often worked very hard to help families be connected to our district. And we really appreciate all of her efforts on that. A very strong work ethic, did lots of special things for children, would find little toys or books or something specific that each child that she worked with really wanted or enjoyed, because she wanted that personal connection with children. And so we wish her luck in her retirement as well.
Okay, your turn, Matt. Let me just pull up my notes. So I was sitting down to write Matt's retirement words, and I was fortunate to the new principal of the middle school, effective July 1, sent me an email saying, "Hey Steve, just in case you want one last thing to think about, here's some great notes about Matt if you're trying to write a speech." So I borrowed quite a bit of it from the gathering that the middle school had, because it captured Matt so well, and Amy knows him as well or better than I do. So Matt has been a principal since 1997. Is that right, Matt? Well, she got that wrong. Wow. You got 10 more years there. Not bad. Matt was hired as a special education teacher in Plainville in 1984. 1982. Come on up. You might. Wow, it's an epic failure so far. Well, Matt's been doing this for a long time. Now, this is a 40-year career. Can I say that's accurate? All right, we're going to say 40 years is good. I've often said, and it's been said in many circles, that Matt's the most interesting man in the world. I know it's stolen from a commercial, but Matt really is the most unique and interesting person that I've met in education and many other, pretty much anywhere. Matt is I don't know why, but he loves snakes. I'm sorry, I'm not a snake guy. Matt has snakes in his office. He's very popular. The kids like to feed the snakes live bait, rodents, right? I've seen it. It's kind of gross. I feel bad for them. He's a breeder. He's an expert. He's a capturer, right? Is that all true? Yeah, okay. Tell me if I'm wrong here, because you need to talk to Amy. I thought you knew each other pretty well. I guess he's an amateur genealogist, family that came over on the Mayflower. Is that true? Then why did she say this? I'm starting to think I was pranked by Mrs. Roberts. We need to have a conversation. Knows the best blue crab, fiddlehead, and cranberry bog spots. Is that true? All right. All right. Well, I'm borrowing all this. I mean, what I said the other day at the 8th grade ceremony is that Matt is, I have 3 children. Matt has 4, and he's an amazing father. And I hear a lot of the stories, and I share a lot of the stories of my kids and get advice from Matt. He's been someone that I've gone to kind of looking for that fatherly advice. And, when you think about the person that you want to be your child's principal, especially for a middle school where there's so many quirky, weird things happening, in your mind and your body and everything that happens in middle school, it's a very strange place. Matt fits right in there. No, Matt is just, he's the perfect person as a principal. And, I've valued his friendship and his wisdom, his patience. He's an incredible artist. One year the administrative party was at his house, the holiday gathering, and he walked into this room and there's these beautiful oil paintings. I'm not sure about the one that was a life-size painting of Matt himself, but he said it was for, all right, I made that up, but he is really an incredible artist. You sell your artwork, don't you? I think, maybe I should buy something to get my way out of this mess that I'm making for myself. Let's see what else I can tell you about Matt. Yeah, well, you have to talk to Amy about this. The relationship that Matt has with the students in his school, it's special. The kids love him. He's I'll say father figure, maybe uncle. I'm not going to make you grandfather figure. You're still too young for that. Just to see Matt operate and how he runs the school, he's done incredible things at the middle school, Plainville. He's left a legacy, loved by all the kids, by the parents, the staff. And, one thing that I will say is, clear about Matt is the compassion, the empathy that he has, and just his open-mindedness and how supportive he is. And he understands the challenge that everyone must face, and he embraces everyone regardless of that and supports them to become the best person they can be. Mary, I want to wish you good luck too, because he's quite the individual. Matt's also looking to continue some work potentially with us in a different capacity. So we may not be saying goodbye completely, but we'll talk about that. And Matt, thank you so much for all you've given to Plainville Community Schools, for being a friend. And I wish you the very best in retirement, enjoying your time off, if you ever take some, walking your dog, spending time with Mary. And I'm taking you and Lynn out for your evaluation dinner, remember? So we'll plan that. All right. Thank you. Congratulations.
If I say a few words.
No, please do.
Oh, I gotta take my bag. Got my ice cream? Oh. It does remind me of a story back when I used to teach back at the old junior high school, and we took the kids on a bike ride, and we got to our destination. One of the kids had this huge wet spot on his pants. Now, you think at first maybe he had wet himself, but oh no, he bought an ice cream for the trip and put it in his pocket to have for later. So that was many good stories like that. But thank you, Steve. I know for over the years you've taken some jabs for your, how should I say it nicely, verbosity. But I, for one, though, have always appreciated your impressive writing and speaking skills. You write very well. You should keep doing it. Good job. Don't listen to anybody. There you go. I won't read them. I want to thank so many people, but I'll start with thanking this particular Board of Education for their support, and the Board of Education from 14 years ago that trusted me with the principalship of the middle school, and with particular thanks to Becky, who has been on that board, was on that Board of Ed, and has been on the Board of Ed ever since I've been a principal. And I also want to thank the Board of Ed that hired me here in Plainville back in 1982. I don't know. Yeah. At that time, I'd been teaching for a year at CREC, along with my partner and mentor, Tom Page. And Plainville was planning on sending 5 students from the old junior high school to our CREC program for students with behavioral disorders. But CREC was restructuring, and Tom and I were being moved to a different program. So Plainville, always great at reassessing, realigning, and reallocating resources, realized that it would be considerably less expensive to hire Tom and I as special education teachers than to outplace 5 students. So we were hired, and so was born the forerunner of all of today's Plainville in-house programs for students with emotional and behavioral disabilities. You know, I grew up in Norwalk, Connecticut, and like many kids from that area, I rarely left Fairfield County and thought New Haven was probably the capital of Connecticut and at the far reaches of Connecticut. I'd never heard of Plainville. But then when I was an undergraduate student at the University of Connecticut in 1979, I took a road trip to visit my then girlfriend who lived in New Britain, which I said New Britain, which she soon corrected me. That was New Britain. So... And we drove through Berlin, which I was also fixed, and that's Berlin. So in my trip, I got lost. And then I ended up stopping to ask for directions to Steele Street, which is where I wanted to go in New Britain. And I happened to stop at a gas station. It's now the Sunoco station at the corner of New Britain Avenue and Crooked Street. And as I entered the station, there were 2 teenage employees in the midst of an argument about whether the ocean nearest to Connecticut was the Atlantic or the Pacific. So I was a little anxious about asking directions, but I went ahead, and I'll never forget the response I got. "You're in Plainville, bub. Go up the road a few miles." So that was my first experience, and I thought, geez, I'm never going to be in Plainville again, and man, they must have a wacky school system. So... few short years later, I was working and living here in Plainville, and I have never regretted it for a second. Being a part of Plainville, the Plainville school system and community for the last 39 years has been an honor. This is a very special community, welcoming, down to earth, creative, and caring. I'm so glad that I raised my 4 children here and that they all attended the Plainville school system, and they do know where the various oceans do lie. So... in some ways, I don't really feel that different from the 22-year-old who started a teaching career sporting a mullet back in 1981. But in other ways, I've changed a lot, mostly for the better. But much of that change has been due to the modeling and guidance I received from my fellow educators. And I'd love to personally thank every one of them by name. But we'd be here for a long time, so I'm not going to do that. But some have helped me, and I'm grateful for that. Have helped me a real lot. But I am going to start with just a few personally. My parents. I'm supremely grateful to my parents. They taught me the value of doing your best, being kind to others, especially those less fortunate than yourself, being honest, healthy, loving, and looking inside for your sense of value and well-being. One of the greatest lessons they gave me was don't let the outside world control your happiness. Happiness, rather, is all about connecting to yourself, which means understanding and accepting who you truly are and loving that. This has always kept me open to self-examination and a willingness to accept that I may not always know best, and that's okay. My parents also always had the grace to never embarrass or ridicule a child, any child. And I have always tried my best to be as graceful as they were, though I've not always been as successful as I would have liked. My father passed away a few years ago, but my mom is going strong at 92, and I'm going to go visit her for her birthday soon. And I'm sure to thank her once again for all she has done. She also happened to be a teacher. She was an elementary school art teacher and always modeled for us the dignity and value that went with being the teacher of others. I hope I've been able to model a little of what my parents taught me with all of you and with this community. Always treat children with dignity and kindness. Always remember that teaching is the greatest and most honorable profession that there is. I also want to thank Tom Page. I mentioned him earlier. A few of you knew Tom. He taught at the middle school and left just a year or so before I came back to the middle school of Plainville. Tom was my teaching partner for the first 10 years of my career back at the old junior high school. And together we ran Plainville's first program for students with emotional and behavioral disorders. They were called socially and emotionally maladjusted back then. So much of what I learned about relating and managing children came from Tom. The first and foremost was that positive reinforcement trumps discipline every time. Students do not learn anything new from being disciplined, though it has its value. They learn from instruction, positive role modeling, and reinforcement. Tom was one of the most devoted, caring people I ever met. He also taught me that growth happens over time, and it is different for every child. Lessons we teach may seem to be falling on deaf ears, but suddenly flower in a child's life at some time in the future, maybe even decades later. We may never see that, but have faith it will happen. When it came to helping students, no one was as tenacious as Tom. He was a great teacher and a wonderful human being, and I will be eternally grateful for all that he taught me. Thank you, Plainville, as a whole, for the sacred trust you have placed in me, the care and education of our most prized gifts, our children. I have always tried my best to fulfill my duties as a teacher and then principal with honesty, integrity, and kindness. I hope that I have accomplished this goal. I am very, very proud of my choice of career and especially for helping to make MSP a great place to learn and teach. And I'm going to leave you all now with my favorite quote about teaching from the author and teacher, Pat Conroy. My heart sings when a kid refers to me as his teacher, and it always has. I've honored myself and the entire family of man by becoming a teacher. Thank you.
I didn't give any of the other retirees the opportunity to speak. I don't know if anyone else would like to. I don't want to put anyone under pressure, but on the spot. But if anyone would like to, somehow I had a feeling, not to be outdone. That was beautiful, Matt. That's why I figured I'd let her have the last word. We're better off.
Thank you. So I too want to thank the Board of Education and Becky Tyrell. We were in it from the start many years ago when I was a rookie principal. We were looking for somebody to give us a little more influence in the world, like Mr. Batchelder likes to refer to Taflon, like, we like to have our hands in everything. And we looked around and I said, Becky, I'll make the posters if you run for the Board of Ed. And she was not sure about it, then she did it, and she has just been such a blessing to Plainville ever since serving on the Board of Ed for such a long time. And I want to thank Foster for being a good friend over the years. It was nice spending time with you and always seeing Foster up at the top of the path in the morning, sometimes running up the path in the morning. We're like barely crawling out of bed and there's Foster running by. But he's always been a good friend to Plainville, and Brent with his children at Plainville, and Becky too with your children. And of course, Kathleen's kids are not kids anymore, but thank you. And Crystal spent a little time actually teaching at Tafalon School. We didn't have her children. So I just want to thank everybody on the Board of Ed, Nicole and Deb and Lori as well. Thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the children of Plainville. I too have a story about my parents. My dad worked at GE for 35 years here in Plainville. I never had any idea growing up where Plainville was, but he always talked about wanting to move to Plainville and what a great place it would be to raise a family in Plainville. And I really didn't know anything about it until one time I actually got lost as well. I got my license, 16, up in New Britain, somehow got on 72 by mistake and ended up in Plainville. So Plainville has always been this place where I kind of thought would be a great place for kids. And then when a position came up, I wasn't sure I wanted to leave where I was, but I applied because my dad said, go apply in Plainville. It's a great place for families, a great place for kids. And I've said that all along. Plainville really is a great place to raise a family. I could not have done the job and the work that I've done without the staff at Tafalon School, and I can't brag enough about them. And some of them are here tonight. Thank you for coming. The staff really is what makes the school. The only credit I take, I say over and over again, the only credit I take for Tafalon School is that I got to hire just about everybody who works there over the last 24 years. But they are really the magic that happens. And this year especially, we got to see that magic. They really rose to the occasion, overcame a lot of obstacles, and did great things for kids. The other nice thing about Plainville that I have to say sets it aside from other districts is the leadership of Plainville is so consistent. If we can go back to Kathy Palkowski was here for many, many years, and then Maureen came up through the system, and then Steve. And I really think that that's a good part of Plainville's stability. Goes back to the fact that we've had stable leadership with Matt here for a long time as well. So the future is bright for Plainville. The future is bright for education. When you step into classrooms like Betsy's, you can't miss the fact that children are very, very bright, very smart, and the future is in good hands. And I want to thank all of you for a fantastic career here in Plainville. It's better than I ever could have expected, and it's been quite a ride. Thank you.
So what we'd like to do is to have a group picture of all of our retirees, if you don't mind, in front of the, no, it's not there. Somewhere. We'll find a nice spot for that. And in the back, yeah. So we'll do a nice group picture, and then we're going to have a short intermission for some refreshments, and then we're going to introduce our new teacher of the year, who's anxiously awaiting. I didn't know this would go until 7:40. So if you were planning on a quick exit, then sorry. No, I'm just kidding. It was well worth it. Just one last word to all the retirees. Thank you. I've gotten to know all of you in different capacities over the years, and I just couldn't be more proud. Looking around this room at the incredible people who make Plainville, it's really what makes us special. And I think Lynn said it best about Tafalon. It's the staff that make Tafalon. It's the staff of the whole district that make this district so special and unique. And I'm fortunate to be the leader here. I'm surprised Lynn called me stable, I think, which is probably about the best compliment I could get after this year. So I just want to thank you all for being here, and congratulations to all the retirees. Let's have some pictures and some refreshments, and we'll start our regular meeting. Thank you.
I'm just going to tell people we're going to do like Wheeler with their folks, and then we'll do everybody together. I'm just going to pause it for that round here. Good. All right. So the middle school. Let's go with anybody in the middle school. Middle school retired. Diane. Let's go for anybody else? Oh, very cute. All right, well, you can do this. All right, and Betsy. Carl?
Wasn't paying attention. Put some short people in front. All right, let's refreshments. What do you think, Hello, Sean.
Did you not prepare your next set of notes?
There's the nominations for the teacher of the year, so I'm just trying to, it's like 4 pages. I'm just trying to pull some highlights. And since I'm not gonna read all of it. I'll save it for conversation. Hey, thanks for doing the interview. You said you did a great job. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. They're still editing and stuff, but you said you were great. That's why I knew you would be. That's why we.
They were to give me a topic and so people just talk.
You have that gift. Better than me. Oh, that's saying a lot, right? I didn't say more than me. I said better. What is it? I thought so. Thanks. You got it all right. Yeah. I am. I miss you. I'm not going home till later. In case it's like a death threat. I'm going to cover my home. Not the same around here. I miss you, Thursday. Congratulations. That's amazing. Thank you, man. Of course.
thousands of dollars for tests.
Okay. Let's get the little cream.
More classes. So much worse.
It was worth every penny. Sometimes I didn't tell me how and I never expected that when they started, I couldn't necessarily. Right. And it's got a little more and a little more, and then we got the high school. It doesn't come naturally. So it's kind of a brain harder work. Just dance, everybody dance now, give me some dance. And especially she's just has more ownership.
Who are you gonna call? Every major
It's fine dining.
Because they have those like carrots and
We never had a restaurant before. Sports are good. You know
We're going to get started with the regular meeting in just about 1 minute. If you could finish up your refreshments or take some back to your seat. And then Becky will call the regular meeting to order.
What's that, Foster? It was yours. I was going to sit down and go, that's not my pen. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you, everyone, for that quick interlude. Calling the meeting back to order, 8:02. Oh, Pledge of Allegiance. We didn't do the Pledge of Steve is trying to show me the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going, look, like, is he? I'm like this. I'm going, like, is he having chest pain?
Last summer I was, not now though.
So we'll first we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. That's always good. Mrs. Hardy, how about leading us?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Thank you. Steve's okay. That's good. Shoot. Take it away, Steve.
So we have some special presentations tonight, and I'm very honored to introduce our next Teacher of the Year for the year 2021-22. As you all know, this past year, our current Teacher of the Year is Dominic Tallada from the high school. And he's of course, a highly esteemed and respected teacher, and he's done a tremendous job for our district. And every year, the task of choosing the next Plainville Teacher of the Year is a very challenging one, and it's done by a committee of prior Teachers of the Year, facilitated by Mr. Lewandowski and with some clerical support from Tina Greiger. So I want to thank them for their role in that. But it's really about the process of being nominated by your peers and being selected by your peers through a pretty rigorous selection process with a number of high-quality candidates who are nominated, and a process that is used to determine who will be the next Teacher of the Year. This year, the 2021-2022 Plainville Teacher of the Year is Cindy Giantonio. So I'm just going to say a few words about Cindy from her colleagues, a couple of her colleagues, and there are many words that are similar to this from all who know Cindy. I had the first pleasure and honor of knowing Cindy, and I see her husband Guy is here as well. So Guy, congratulations on being married to a celebrity here. And her daughters Michaela and Bree are here, and I know Kelsey couldn't make it, but I'm sure she's here. She's in Ohio, so I guess that's a good excuse. But Kelsey used to be my student, so that's how I got to know the Giantonio family. So welcome to the whole family. And just a few words about Cindy from her peers. And basically there's a lot here, a lot of wonderful things. So I'm just pull out some words to describe Cindy from her peers. Welcoming. So I'm just going through. I underlined some adjectives and some verbs. Welcoming, non-judgmental, goes above and beyond, constructive feedback, calm and engaging, clear, excited to share new ideas, always offering a helping hand, caring person, interacts, talks to her students, her teammates, and other teachers. This person asks herself when in a difficult situation, what would Cindy do? Pushes students and supports them. Not physically pushes, that would be bad. That'd be a different meeting. Sorry, I can't help myself. Teaches her students to be avid learners, full of compassion, truly cares, making sure her students are successful, accepting. This is an interesting one that was specific to this year. Provides her instruction from a cart, yet she does it flawlessly. And this is ironic because Wheeler was just beautifully renovated. So she had just gotten a beautifully renovated library and a learning space to welcome her students and to share her love of reading when things quickly had to change. So, without grumbling, just loaded up the cart and went to classes and did an incredible job from a cart. Resilient, doesn't complain, always a smile on her face, enters every classroom with a happy greeting, calm demeanor, above and beyond, passion. And then another colleague wrote some poems, around our portrait of the graduate pillars. So if you're thinking of, collaborative and communicative and innovative, mindful and resilient, I had to read these. These are great. Collaborative, let's work together is always her rule of thumb. Through the storms, through the weather, together is better, is what we'll become. Communicative. Sorry if I can't read these very well. Cindy knows how to speak. Her answers are always quite unique. She always makes me feel complete. She is strong and always upbeat. Innovative. Fun and fresh are the lessons the kids enjoy. With Mrs. G at the wheel. All the kids scream, oh boy. Their excitement. That wasn't very enthusiastic. Oh boy. All right, sorry. Their excitement they cannot conceal. Mindful. Cindy's mindfulness is a gift. Her presence is hard to resist. She pays attention to each and all. She is non-judgmental and stands up tall. Then it says, there's a clarifier. It says not her actual height because we all know she isn't that tall, but her character is. I didn't write that. Resilient. We all know her to be resilient, flexible, and free. Cindy especially can agree. Oh boy, I lost the end of that rhyme. There it is. This year has been tough, but we are tougher. Cindy's resilience is hot stuff. So, just a few words. You're going to hear a lot more at Convocation when we return. I think Convocation is August 30th, but I know that's quite a ways away. And you'll hear some wonderful words of Cindy's passion for teaching and all that she brings to Wheeler School and the Plainville schools and the role model that she is for other teachers and educators across the district. So, Cindy, congratulations. I know you're going to be an amazing Teacher of the Year. I want you to see my sheet notes.
Okay.
This is for you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, that's it.
Okay, so I am actually behind this podium. I just want you to know that. I could totally relate to the stories about Nancy because I am at the elementary level and those children are still taller than I am. So I know all about the height thing. I just really wanted to take a moment to say thank you, that this is truly an honor. I am so humbled by this honor and grateful to my peers to have even nominated me. It was just being nominated was so overwhelming and really touched my heart. And when the administrators came with the flowers and the balloons to let me know that this was happening, it was just such a magical moment. And to share it with some of my students was really pretty incredible. So, and I am a lifelong resident of Plainville, so I went through this wonderful school system myself, and I can really speak to the quality. And then now to have the privilege to be able to teach here is really amazing. And my own daughters were also educated here in Plainville, and it's wonderful. I can't say enough about Plainville, and to hear all the great things that Lynn was saying, it really is very true. It's absolutely a great place. I can say, though, I've never been lost in Plainville. So I definitely should know my way around at this point. So I just want to say how proud I am to represent the hardworking, dedicated teachers here in Plainville Community Schools. And truly, this is just such an honor, really. And I thank all of you for this opportunity. Thank you. And I'll put this back up for somebody else.
Okay. We have one more presentation this evening, and it's for Catherine Guarco. Catherine couldn't be here this evening, which is unusual because for the past 2 years, she has been here almost every single board meeting we have had. Catherine has been here, as I said, very consistently, and Catherine is extremely busy. She was attending, I think she was part of almost every National Honor Society of any kind in the high school. She was this graduating class's salutatorian. She is not only an outstanding student, she's involved in everything. And we really do appreciate all the time and effort that she put in being a board liaison. She also gave us a little bit of feedback once in a while that we sometimes don't get from students. They're intimidated by us, yeah, because we're an intimidating group up here. But Catherine, really did serve very well, serve her students well, serve the board well, and we appreciate and thank her very much. So, Catherine. So with that, we're going to continue on with the board and meeting, and all of you need to stay. Stop, everybody gives it. No, I was just going to say, please do not feel the need to stay. We know that you can listen to this online. Thank you all very much. All our wonderful retirees. This is Giantonio. Congratulations. And everyone have a great evening and a good summer. No, the board cannot leave. Mrs. Hardy just asked. All right. Yeah, she's being fresh. So that brings us to our approval of minutes, of which we have, looks like, 5 sets? Would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chairman, I request that we approve the minutes of the May 10th regular business meeting of the Plainville Board of Education.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Or were there any corrections on this, May 10th? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Do you want to go to the next one? Are you doing them one at a time?
Yeah, but-
You could do, maybe.
Well, actually, Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the special May 10th, 2021 Board of Education meeting. Also that we approve the minutes of the May 19th special meeting of the Board of Education, the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee. I request the approval of the minutes of the May 24th special meeting of the Board of Education. And in conclusion, I request approval of the minutes of the June 1st special meeting of the Board of Education.
Is there a second? Second, Deb. Any correction on any of these minutes? Right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you very much. That takes us to citizens' comments. Oh, well. Oh, there still is a citizen. I was like,
There's a citizen here.
completely empty chairs, but we have to have a citizen who does not wish to comment, so that's okay too. All right, that brings us to our liaison, our council liaison. And I know Mrs. Puglisi could not be here this evening. She didn't pass along anything particular she wanted us to share? Okay.
No, not today.
All right, thank you. So that brings us to superintendent's report. Mr. LePage, take it away.
Thank you. Mr. Ross, could you pull up the presentation, please? And it's my pleasure to introduce my assistant superintendent and to give him a little plug for doing an amazing job throughout the entire year. And since we've hired him 2 years ago, Dave Lewandowski's really been outstanding and my right-hand man and doing so much across the district. And tonight I've asked him to do a district school climate report. I know it was an unusual year and, like with everything else, Dave did a nice job of putting together a summary report just of some of the measures in the areas we're working on as a district regarding school climate. Mr. Lewandowski, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. LePage. So it's as Steve said, it's a little different than a normal climate report. We don't have much data this year from what we collected since it was an unusual year. Now there we go. So I decided to kind of talk about all of the things that we've done, which is a lot. This is not an extensive or exhaustive list, but I kind of crafted it around our initiatives, the main areas of focus this year with SEL, equity and mastery, and then also with our Porch of the Graduate, which is a huge area of focus within the district this past year and moving forward. So I'm just waiting for the next slide, but you guys can look at that quote. No, you're good. You're perfect. All right. So obviously we were working through a pandemic this year. So it was a school year like no other. And like that says on the top, we were trying to make the most of a difficult situation like every district across the country we're trying to do. But I think we did it very, very well. And those are just a couple bullet points about what we did. First of all, it was an amazing job by everyone involved, families, students, staff. We were able to remain fully in person since October. And really, we were set to go full in right away. We had done a lot of work across the district, a lot of communication across the district to make sure we could do that. Of course, the state threw a couple wrenches into the plans, so we did go hybrid at the beginning, but we were ready. And right from October, we went full in. We stayed full in the whole year. Quality instruction and state-of-the-art technology were instrumental to keeping us full in and to making sure that we didn't shortchange our students, and we did the most we could in this situation to continue the great educational experience that kids get in Plainville. And then I think that statistic says a lot about the community. Right from the beginning, we had about 80% of students full in, so only 20% remote, and that changed as we went through the year. More families got a little more comfortable Students got more comfortable, and by the end, we were close to 90% full in. So that's a testament of what we did within the district to create that safe climate for students and families and for staff. So I did mention the Porch of the Graduate. This is a very big focus for our district. So I wanted to just kind of talk about each area and the things that we've done this past year with climate that revolve around those attributes, which are collaborative, communicative, innovative, mindful, and resilient. Next slide, Kev. So first, collaborative. We couldn't have done any of the things we did this year without collaborating with all constituents. And, our job was to provide the best educational experience we could, no matter what. So it obviously looked different, but we really worked with all unions to make sure that we all agreed upon what the expectations were and what the environment would look like, because it was a changed environment for everyone. Our PLCs, we decided to go weekly with PLCs, so teachers had that extra time to collaborate, to work on instruction, assessment, and planning. Because again, we were using a lot of different techniques for teaching. We really started to use technology a lot more in ways that teachers hadn't used before. So we wanted to make sure that we had that increased time for teachers to collaborate with each other. And then obviously there was a lot of coordination between our local health officials, which we never had to work with that closely in the past, because there were a lot of collaborative decisions that needed to be made based on requirements and based on guidelines that were coming out, and they were ever-changing guidelines and requirements. So as Steve knows, more than anyone else, there was a lot of hours put into just meeting with local officials on what the expectations were as we move forward. So part of that was the contact tracing and the ensuring safety and continuity of instruction within our school buildings. Next slide. So communication is key. As you know, we try to communicate often with all constituents, with families on a regular basis in different languages, trying to make sure that the message goes out to everyone and there's not just messaging one way. We're making sure we're getting feedback from all constituents as well. So a lot of these bullet points are just a testament to how much communication in the district is done to ensure that our climate is a welcoming climate, is a responsive climate where we're listening to our constituents and we're making sure that we're transparent with everything that we're doing. And that goes not only with teaching and learning, but the operations, all the different changes in schooling that we had to go through this year. We're making sure that everyone was aware of shifts and changes as they were happening. We're working really hard to create a welcoming center in our registration process so that parents, again, feel comfortable with the district and feel connected to the district right upon registration. And that's in all languages. We've hired translators, and we're doing a lot of work to, again, just make sure that whenever anyone comes to Plainville, they feel like they're part of this family. And I feel that way in coming in as well. So we're continuing that work. And then, we had so many, again, different health status reports that we had to relay to families, and that continued on a weekly basis. And very transparent in talking about the quarantines that were happening, the confirmed cases of COVID that happened throughout the year, so that everyone was aware of what was going on in the school buildings. And again, could feel safe that we were addressing everything as it came. And then a lot of surveying of students, families, staff, just to ensure that what we were doing was being effective and that we were taking all of the input that we could to make it, to continue our continuity of instruction and progress forward. Next slide. So another area, another attribute that we try to push is innovativeness and being innovative. And we rearranged many schedules and classroom spaces to make sure that we could accommodate all the health requirements, to try to maximize instruction and give students the best instruction possible that we could under the circumstances. And I think we did that. We were one of the first districts to create that new position for EL, equity, and student supports. You see those positions everywhere now. There's a lot of postings from different districts that want to hire people in these roles. And I think we were out in the forefront of this. And we were talking about equity and SEL and mastery long before the state requirements came out and mandates to have these as focus areas. And we were also very comprehensive with our virtual professional learning offerings. So our PD days, we were very innovative in how we were offering these opportunities to staff, utilizing our staff with technology to present to others, and really didn't miss a beat with professional learning in this new environment that COVID created. Next slide. So mindfulness is obviously a necessity now. We saw it with staff, we saw it with families, we see it with students. We'll continue to see this as we move forward, the impacts and effects of social isolation, of not having the experiences that you would in a normal year. So some of the things that we did, and again, these are not exhaustive lists, but we definitely adopted the state flexibilities for evaluation. We felt like we were all trying new things this year. It wouldn't be fair to evaluate the same way we always evaluated, because we wanted teachers to take risks. We wanted them to get comfortable with new teaching techniques, with new technology, and not feel like it was part of their evaluation to do so. We try to teach that with kids too. We had a good conversation about that today, about making mistakes, and that's how we learn. It's okay to make mistakes. So I think we learned a lot, and I think it was very mindful of us to do it in this manner. We also had social emotional learning activities for both staff and students throughout the year to make sure that we were really in tune to their needs throughout this process. We brought in that partnership with Cornerstone Counseling so that we would have a provider in all the schools that would be easily accessible to parents and students. And they've been a great partner. And when I talk about the professional learning that we've done throughout the year, they've actually done some professional learning for us. And some of that was strategic. We wanted our staff to really get to know the people at Cornerstone, get to understand that we have this organization within our schools and how they could support not only staff but students. So that's been a great partnership. And then we really rethought assessments throughout this year. Assessments can be anxiety-ridden for kids, and in a time of COVID, when instruction, we tried to do the best we can, but it wasn't a normal year. We wanted to make sure that we were assessing appropriately, not over-assessing, and making sure that when we did assess, it was meaningful, not only for the students, but for staff and for the teachers. Next slide. That brings us to resilience. And that's going to help us recover and transform what we're doing. So we had to adapt to varying modes of teaching and learning. And not only students and staff had to adapt, but so did parents and families. They had to adapt to this new way of educating kids, and of how kids had to kind of live life in school on a regular basis with masks and with social distancing and with cohorting, and it was very different. So, the resiliency that parents have shown as well, and entrusting us with their kids, and to ensure that, we were doing everything we could to keep them safe, but also having as normal an educational experience as they could during this time was very powerful. Again, I think we showed a lot of resilience in the continuous changes that had to be made on a regular basis, because of sometimes even conflicting guidelines and expectations. So really sifting through all the information we were getting and making the most informed decisions was a big part of the success we had this year and the climate we created. I think the remarkable job by the majority of students to attend to their learning each day was impressive. We were really nervous about some of our kids just tuning out or getting lost in this time, and we didn't see it. Yes, we saw some, and we're starting to recover from some of that. But overall, the majority of kids were in tune to the learning. They were accessing their education every day. The remote students did a very good job of joining in remotely. Sometimes cameras off, but that's okay. They were, for the most part, accessing education in a positive way. And then again, the PCS community has been so positive in how they've reacted to what's been done and the job that had to be done to change basically the educational landscape. was incredible. And that brings us to the next slide, which is using mastery, equity, and SEL, those foundational elements that we really started to focus on at the end of last year and throughout this year, and this will continue. These areas, as you can see in the triangle, that student experience, if we really work on those areas around the triangle, then the student experience is going to improve. And I also use this graphic to show instructional core in the middle of that triangle, because these areas also impact our instruction on a daily basis. So next slide. These are just a couple areas in which we're improving the climate through this work. We want to make sure that all students feel part of the PCS family, no matter where they come from, no matter their ethnicity, their disability, their sexual orientation. We just want to make sure everyone feels a part of this educational community. We also want to make sure that everyone has access and opportunity to rigorous and relevant coursework. Again, we had a really good summit with all instructional leaders today talking about just that, rigorous and relevant instruction for all, and really transforming education so that all our students are college and career ready when they leave us. We want to make sure that we continue with targeted supports for social, emotional, physical, and academic needs. Some of our ESSER money is going towards just that. We want to make sure students have a voice and choice in their educational journey. So a choice about what courses they take, making sure that we're not holding students back by prerequisites or, our recommendations for them. Let's hear from students. And then making sure that everything we do is standards-based and actionable. Next slide. So for social emotional learning, we've done a lot. We have a committee that works on social emotional learning and equity. It's a district committee, but then it filters down to the schools and they have their own committees. So every school is doing a lot of strategies for improving social emotional learning for students and for staff. So we have a curriculum that we're reinforcing the attributes of the portrait of the graduate. We're working on that now so that we have a continuum from pre-K through 12 on building these attributes in the portrait of the graduate. We were making sure that we're recognizing students and staff for their work. We have classroom and school charters so that every student and staff knows the expectations and how we want them to feel and how they want other people to feel inside the school buildings and inside the classrooms. Again, we have cornerstone counseling, working through our schools, making it more easily accessible to address some of the needs that some of our students have. And of course, this is a growing need in our community and our schools based on the pandemic. Again, I talked about the professional learning Cornerstone Counseling has done for us. They've been incredible to work with, and they have full caseloads already because we do have a lot of need. And we also have a universal screener now that we actually were going to purchase. Again, something else that we did before the state came out is we were using our ESSER money already to purchase a universal screener to really be proactive and find out what are the students' needs and who needs support at what times and getting them that support. And now the state has actually purchased it. The State Department of Education has purchased this universal screener and this resource, and we are now going to be piloting it. I think we're one of, I don't even know how many schools, districts have been chosen, but we'll be piloting it, and we're able to use that assessment next year. So we're planning some training this summer for that. So this will really help us to be proactive and kind of meet kids where they are and understand what their needs are through some of these screeners. Equity is another area, if you go to the next slide, that we've done a lot of work. We have, as a community, we have the Anti-Racism Task Force, but as schools, we also have equity teams in schools and then that district committee. And really, our efforts are for equitable access and opportunity to learning in our schools. So that's making sure that all students can personally relate to curriculum. So can kids see themselves in our curriculum and in our instruction and our teaching, in the literature that we have in classrooms? Can they see themselves and their experiences in those books? Making sure that we look at our data really deeply to identify if there's any disproportionality of outcomes just based on subgroup. And that's not just ethnicity, that's gender, that's disability, that's socioeconomic status. Just looking at, are there things that are happening within schools that impact certain students in a negative way? So that's important work. And we're starting to do more and more of that so that even down to the classroom level, we're looking at that data. Making sure across the district we have student clubs, again, with the voice and choice, so we can promote equity through the students themselves. So there are a few different clubs running at the different schools that are doing great work within the schools and within those walls to make sure that everyone is valued. I already talked about the anti-racism task force, which is a lot of different community members along with school partnerships. We're also looking at our practices within district. Are there practices that don't allow students to take rigorous coursework if they really want to take it? Or if there's a motivation for them to take a certain course, are there barriers that don't allow them to take that? We're taking that into account and looking at our own practices. And then revisiting the levels of coursework that we have within the district, especially at the high school level, just to ensure that when we say kids are college and career ready, do all the courses that we offer really ensure that kids have the experiences that will make them college and career ready when they leave? And if not, then we have to revisit those courses and make sure that they are rigorous enough. Next slide. All right, and that goes with the mastery piece. How successful our kids are when they leave us. So to promote mastery, again, allowing kids to take the courses that they want to take and that they have interest in, and really finding out what are their interests. So different ways that we can get that information from kids throughout the educational process, even as elementary kids. Making sure that we have explicit college and career pathways for kids, which does promote relevance. And the data is there that talks about kids who are college and career prepared and have those opportunities in school and in their schooling. There's more of a preparedness for them when they leave, and they feel better about their experiences than those that don't have both the college and career pathways. We want to expand our standards-based assessments, making sure that all the assessments we give really align to the standards that are being taught. Also, that we have targeted academic supports and enrichment opportunities for all students. Again, we're starting to do that right now with some of that ESSER funds, where we're doing some summer programming that we hadn't done in the past, some transition planning from elementary to middle, from middle to high school, and then the work experiences that will really help kids at the high school level get more prepared for when they leave our high school. And then we have that data warehouse that we're really trying to roll out, so that when I talk about that disproportionality or really diving into the data, that we're doing that across the whole district, not just as administrators, but as practitioners, as teachers, so that they're making the right decisions by looking at the data and what the story the data has to tell about the kids in their own classrooms. It's one thing to hear data from a district standpoint, but if teachers have that power to analyze their own data, then they're going to make the most effective decisions in their own classroom. So that's a big piece of work that's going on right now as well. So again, that's not exhaustive by any means, but it just gives a picture of all of the things that we're trying to do across the district to make education more meaningful and create that positive climate for the kids that are with us, for the staff that works in this district, and also for the families that entrust us with their kids every day. And that last slide is just any questions or comments.
Any questions of Mr. Lewandowski?
Okay. As far as the equity piece and changing kind of the curriculum and things like that, there's a lot of debate going on throughout the country about the critical race theory. And are we planning on implementing that in Plainville schools or any part of that?
Now, I know there's a lot in the news about like certain aspects of curricular changes. all we're trying to do is make sure that all of our students can see themselves in our work, and we're valuing all kids' experiences. There's been no talk about critical race theory or any other like pieces of curriculum that are being talked, outside of districts. We're just trying to make sure that our kids they feel valued in our schools. And by doing that, more engaged and more connected to our schools.
I don't have a question, but I just did want to make a comment about some of the wonderful things that are happening. The whole don't let the good crisis go to waste. Some of this is being, I think, done due to the fact that we have funding, and then some of it's being done just because I think, what happens is, the neediest students rise to the top or fall to the bottom, whichever way we want to look at it. When something like this happens and it becomes more obvious that we need to do something faster. So, I really appreciate all the work and the way the district has been looking at all these different issues. And I'm, I feel confident that we're doing the right thing by everybody. So I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewandowski. I appreciate the report. I know you put it together pretty quickly and on top of a lot of other things going on. So thank you. It's an ongoing work in progress. It's part of our foundational pillars of equity, SEL, and mastery that we focus everything on. And that's how we gauge. And we want to know how our students feel. We're going to be doing a lot more Qualtrics surveying tools and really looking on a regular basis on how students are feeling and staff are feeling, and using that as an indicator as well, along with our our performance matters assessment warehouse. So a lot more data-driven decision making, and I'm excited about the committee work that's going to happen this summer and next year. So thank you very much to the members of all those committees, both on the district level and at the schools. I'm going to jump right into the next items in my report. I'm going to try to go through these quickly. I know you've had a long night, but they're important. I did meet with we called the meeting of the Facilities and Finance Subcommittee, and I know that Mr. White, as the chair of that subcommittee, will mention it under the subcommittee reports, but I just want to touch on the financial update and realized savings potential for the end of the year. As I said at that meeting, and as Mr. Adlerstein, our Director of Business and Operations, mentioned, it's a really difficult number to quantify at this point in the year until things settle a little bit and all the dust settles with all the financial transactions for the year in a normal year. And this year it's more challenging with all the different buckets of ESSER funding and coronavirus relief funds and the many different grants that we're able to offset some of these too. Some grants are still in process, so we'll be writing the American Rescue Plan ESSER 3 grant that's due on August 16th. So I guess the best way I could say this is that we expect a decent amount of realized savings. We anticipate that it'll be sufficient to cover these items that I've listed on this little table here. And we've committed to the town council as part of the budget process regarding the Tafalon displays of $61,455 of paying from realized savings or another source if realized savings weren't sufficient, perhaps a grant. But we believe realized savings will be sufficient to cover and hopefully pre-purchase on our dime oil for the bus contract, for the bus fuel of $67,060, the Tafalon displays. I'll talk about turf on the next slide, but I'll share what is in that account and what our long-term needs will be for that, for considering turf renovation or replacement down the road. Legal consultation fees, we do have fairly extensive legal fees for all the different contract negotiations. And so as far as paying the retainer, and then laminators, we had taken out of the capital plan. They didn't really, it's kind of a smaller ticket item. So we pulled those out and were those already paid for, Sam, out of grant funds, or is this something we're looking for out of?
They didn't specifically land anywhere. We took them out of capital and
Okay.
didn't really specifically put them in the budget. We planned but we didn't change the budget once we took them out of cap.
Thank you. So we're hoping to purchase those out of realized savings as well. So these are 5 items that we're looking at. If there's sufficient realized savings, that could give us a little bit of a head start on next year and using some of that realized savings that we will be recouped hopefully from sensible purchasing and other realized savings from this year. Regarding the turf, the next slide it's a busy slide, but it just shows you the turf balance over the years since 2015, which I believe was when it was first installed, 15-16 year. And you can see the current balance, through the different partner organizations and others who use the fields for different fees at different levels, whether they're a partner organization or outside group. And we haven't had as much of that because of COVID. But our current balance is $93,130, and our turf, it was evaluated last December. It's in very good shape. Resurfacing is expected not to be required for several years, probably many years, but it'll happen. It doesn't last forever. The cost when the time comes will probably be over $700,000 for both fields. The board and community have been maintaining this fund since fiscal year 16 in anticipation of that project. So again, these funds build really slowly from the partner groups. We have done some infusions of funding in there, like in fiscal year 17. So if realized savings is sufficient, my recommendation would be that we give a little boost to this account of $50,000 to bring it up to $143,130. Get us, slowly closer to that $700,000 or so that we're going to need to replace them. It's forward thinking. I've seen districts, I won't mention any in particular, the fields are in really, really bad shape. They're like a concrete surface. It's the older turf, but have not taken care of them and don't have a plan to replace the way they should. So I think if, like Plainville does everything else, we should be forward thinking about how we're preparing for that. And it's a partner, endeavor, but as far as something to consider from the Board of Ed side. And I think that's on the new business later on. Oh, maybe it's not. It's just something for your consideration. Regarding the ESSER overview, I'll go into this pretty quickly because I know you've heard a lot about it over the months, but I want to keep you updated and informed. And I shared some of this with our administrative summit earlier today. Thanks always to Sam for a lot of his analysis that he puts into, the numbers and the meaning behind the numbers. So I'm fortunate to have Sam as well. I gave Dave lots of compliments earlier, so Sam, thank you. So short and long-term implications of grants, the process to ensure that the use of them are vision aligned, effective, and efficient. Kind of looking at those big buckets that I've shared some of that with you, some big ideas, and then, where they fall into place with the small details and how we use those monies efficiently. Community insight and review, which is required, especially the American Rescue Plan. And then what's next? So looking at the next slide with the COVID grant funding, the top represents, we don't know the official begin date for the American Rescue Plan funding, but those are the beginning and end dates for those different grant funds. The total for all those funds are $6.288 million. Our estimated balance at the end of June will be $5.243 million. So there's a good amount of money there. That money, some of it has been expended already. About $1 million will have been spent by June 30th. Under ESSER 2, which was the $1.605 million that we learned of in March, just as the budget was being developed, and it threw some complications in there about supplanting, not supplanting. There are 4 main areas. I won't read those to you. They're in the bold print in the center there that those funds must be aligned to. So we met with our team throughout and developed a number of projects that we believe would be really important for the district, using a kind of a comprehensive look from kind of a gap analysis of where we want to be, where we are now. We've done that more extensively when the American Rescue Plan, ESSER 3 information was released. We're still in the process. We have until August 16th to write that grant, and it has to be done with community input and transparency, which we'll certainly be doing, of course, sharing with the Board of Education regularly, which I'm hoping to be doing now with some, and also on the planning side. So it's really, ESSER 3 is really meant to be kind of bold, high impact strategies, new strategies to address the substantial disruptions to student learning. Our disruptions have been less than in some communities, but there have still been disruptions. But I am proud to say our disruptions have been fewer and less intense than in some districts that didn't go back until very late in spring and had difficulties with their technology and all other kinds of problems. So it's to help with all the other grant funded projects, but also really innovative and transformative thinking. Kevin, if you could take me to the next slide. So the next slide shows you kind of a graphic we were provided by the state. So the original grants were really meant like Coronavirus Relief Fund, ESSER 1 to really help us to survive in reopening, and then to thrive with the ESSER 2. And then what they're saying now is transform. So looking at really transformative ways to change some of the ways we educate and to do it better. So there's a lot more verbiage and language on this page, but I won't read it all to you, but it's kind of what I just mentioned on the last page about American Rescue Plan. This next slide that I have, and I don't have too many today, just goes into a little more detail about goals paraphrased from the state, which I won't read to you, but feel free to read that while I'm kind of talking about the benefits and consequence of these monies. So we stand to achieve a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to better serve our students and our community. So it really is an opportunity. In addition to the ESSER grants, the board knows that I've informed you and our team has worked on these, and it's been a lot of work, but we've applied for several other grants, including an after-school grant for $200,000. We're awaiting word on whether we receive that. We have a very good chance of receiving that, and that's for after-school remediation, acceleration, and enrichment programs every day of the year next year, 180 days at all 3 elementary schools, and we're looking at it for some programs potentially for our middle school as well, and also our high school, some credit recovery and support programs on a couple of days a week. And then we have our school security grant, which Sam spent a lot of time working on. I did a lot with the school security work in the past, and I punted this to Sam to work on with with some input from we had our police representatives, Shane Dufresne and Jessica Martins, to helped us with the checklists and drop those off. And working on getting that grant submitted by tomorrow. I think it's due. Did you submit it today already, Sam? Or are you doing it when you go home? so that'll be in by tomorrow. And there's the multimedia systems, which we already have in place through Mutual Link. It's to pay for that and to continue that going forward. It really increase the response time, make our schools safer and more responsive and more direct support from police and multiple organizations as needed, and also help us to lock down our schools and make them safe really quickly in the event of an emergency. In addition to all the radios, the cameras. So stage 5 of the security plan, we've applied for the last 2 and didn't get them, but there's more money in there now. We believe we have a really good chance for it. So with the multimedia and with also the level phase 5, I should say, of the security grant. We've also applied for the Smart Start grant for 2 more pre-K classrooms that will cover $150,000 for the staffing and $100,000 for the capital to get those classes in pre-K shape for our NIAC accredited preschool programs. And we received word on Friday, as I notified the board, that we have received that grant. So $250,000 more dollars for pre-K programs for 2 full Smart Start pre-K classrooms in Plainville. So that'll give us 4 Smart Start grant funded pre-K classrooms, which is really exciting news. So again, kudos to Vicki and her staff and Christina and everyone involved in pre-K. We have really robust programs. It's going to be free, universal pre-K for all. We're really proud of that. And the state is really proud of the work we're doing in Plainville. So we'll continue that. Now, consequences, and it sounds like a strong word, but we will be asked by stakeholders, who are watching carefully, and I hope they do. And I know Mr. Sullivan's here, and he watches carefully, and he's a great supporter, but also someone who asks good questions. And we're going to need that input when we're looking at investing. But did they invest wisely? What are we gaining? Is it worth it? And this is a time where we can really enhance the trust in our educational leaders or diminish that, depending on how well we do. And data and outcomes will tell how we did with these funds. And we have to make sure that we use them in a meaningful way. So the next slide really quickly because there's a lot on there, but these are these are obstacles we face. And again, thank you, Sam, for the work that he did with the continual improvement workshop with a group of our administrators and staff this year, kind of a college course he offered after school. Really good stuff based on his previous work in the corporate world and in the bridge to the educational world. But you can see some of the obstacles that we face just reading through all these kind of virtual sticky notes to use of these funds in a meaningful way. So we have to make sure that we're ensuring significant change that requires behavioral change. So yes, we are adding staff, and three of these 5 colored groupings involve staff. So we have to be very careful about how we add and what we add, and how we assess how well we're doing with what we add to the district through these project-based uses of grant funds. It will dry up and go away because we can't go to the town and ask for a 10% increase in fiscal year 24, 25. I guess it would be fiscal year 24, fiscal year 25. In the future, we can 25 when an American Rescue Plan will be expended by September of 24. So the next slide, Kevin, from our big ideas, and they're crossed out and they're all different colors based on what they align to, which are the 4 areas, but that we came up with this sticky note activity we did. We ended up breaking into 4 areas of equity, SEL, mastery, and systems. So we all brainstormed as an administrative team, what are the big areas? So under my topics that I sent out to everyone, if we could only fix or resolve or remedy this issue, things would be so much better and we would be able to do this. And this is based on a lot of feedback we received from community members, just from observations from parents, families. And some of these are not things we're going to follow through and invest in. Some of these are just kind of big ideas, but we're going to need input from everyone as we move forward. And if you look at the next slide, we met with a central office team last week on Friday, a week ago Friday. And we really did that old kind of sticky note, putting all the big ideas on sticky notes and where do they belong and then grouping them. And it came into those 4 buckets of equity, SEL, mastery, and then systems. And, basically what we did was operationalized these ideas. Some of them will go forward. Some of them will be brought to the community and we'll get feedback and input and insight from the community. But we're also going to follow a very, next slide, Kevin. I'm sorry. So that's what it looked like on the tables. We took pictures. And the next one, Kevin. So by doing this, we were able to break it into 4 areas that are going to have an administrator assigned to that to really help to oversee that the projects aligned to these systems are developed, that we follow a charter that's going to really outline the effectiveness and efficiency of the work, and that we're planning in a meaningful way. We're getting community buy-in. We have the right team involved. We're measuring what we do. We're getting results. And then at the end of this grant money being infused into our district, we're going to have to look back and say, well, what was effective? And throughout the whole process, what was effective? What was most effective? What's a high leverage practice that we want to keep? Which things that we did aren't that effective that we can phase out? Some of them are temporary to help us recover and accelerate, and maybe we don't need them anymore. So at the end, as we're going, we're going to have to start to kind of weed the garden. We'll be planting many things over the next couple of years, to give you a metaphor. So these will be turned into draft projects, planned for review. We'll include Board of Education in the planning process and regular updates on progress. We'll invite our community to review and critique our plans for use of these funds as required, but also in a goal of transparency and capacity building. And then my final slide on ESSER funding is just kind of a theory of action that, full credit to Sam, we do develop theories of action. He came up with this one regarding use of the ESSER grants. If we're intentional in our efforts, next slide, Kevin. If we're intentional in our efforts, next one still. By beginning projects, addressing the inevitable obstacles along the way, celebrating step-by-step success, where the end of one step restarts the project cycle, we will succeed in lasting transformation of the district. So there are things we want to continue, we want to bolster, strengthen, and there are things we want to look at transforming and how we do things in Plainville to better serve our community and our students and our families and our staff. So that's in a nutshell There's a whole lot more that will happen with specific numbers and projects. And if you look at the bottom right of this slide, you'll see a timeline. The school year is broken out by the calendar into days between kind of checking in on ESSER projects. So it'll be very much results-based and time-bound. So we'll be looking at a review of all the projects throughout, and the board will be included, and the community will be included as well. And next slide. This is going to be really quick, but Dave and I have been working on, this is due on June 23rd. As if there's not enough going on in June. The school reopening and continuity of educational services plan. I think that's the official name, but we've been reopened, but it's really what we're going to be doing next year to provide supports for our district and to stay open and supporting everyone. I know we'll get more feedback through the health department over the summer and from the governor's office, the Department of Education, and my weekly meetings. I won't click on the draft there. It's for you to look at. It'll be posted on the website for review as well. It's really a modified, much condensed plan. The last one we had last summer that was due on July 24th was, I think, 35 pages. Then we added to that. We amended. We had sister documents to that. It was a monster. When we were looking back on the year, it was just incredible how much work. This is going to be closer to 10 or 12 or 15 pages, but it won't be anything really extraordinary or new. Many of the features of this will say, depending on the latest health guidance at the start of next school year. So, because a lot of things we just don't know. So we'll keep mitigating strategies in place to the degree that we're required to do so, and we'll remove them to the degree we're allowed to do so. That's the best way I could say it right now. The next one is just a really quick, I want to give you just a quick update on the MSP renovation project, just a status report. I sit on the owner project manager. I'm sorry, I don't sit on the owner project manager. I sit on the capital building projects committee, capital projects. And we've met a few times and looked at different ways of getting us to referendum for the middle school project, which is going to be really important for our district. That school is approaching the timeline when it is eligible as of, April of 22. So the next slide, Kevin, and I just gave you, quick bullet points. Right now it's in the process where it did go out to bid, and bids came in for owner project manager firms. Originally, we had a presentation from Collier's group, which has done a lot of schools, and they have a good reputation, but the members of the committee said, well, we should put it out to bid and see who else is out there, which is what we did. 3 groups came in. You can see them there in the second bullet point. We have a tentative date set up, I think, of July 13th at 6 o'clock to hear from all 3 groups. They'll present. The bid that went out is linked there where it says here. You can look at that. This has been shared with the board. We can put it up on the website too. So that's our next meeting. And from there, we'll decide, whether or not we want to go with an owner project management group. They've been touted as being very helpful for saving money and being very efficient and alleviating some of those change orders. A lot of times, if you don't have someone really a watchdog over the development of a project, you have many, many change orders that, as we know from experience, that can lead to pretty expensive changes and additional costs. So that's where they kind of really keep an eye on things and get you to. But this would just be to get us to the referendum so that we're really well prepared for the referendum vote that has to happen by February of 22, no later than then. I think we're going to try to do earlier than then. And then the application to the state no later than April of 2022. So exciting things, and I'll keep you informed on that as we go. And then finally, for my report, I've talked a lot tonight. I don't have much oxygen in my brain right now, so I apologize. I've used it all. I think I've used it all in the room. So the PCS promotional video. This has been exciting. We had an opportunity from CREC. It was only $500, and we talked about we need to really promote Plainville, and not just open choice, but to everyone for people seeking employment in a wonderful district, for open choice students, so that we can have so that we can fill the seats that we have that are open, that we really want to fill with our partner district that we have a great experience with, but also just to, as Dave talked about with the Welcome Center, the new Welcome Center, where Tawana and Lily and Sue McGuff are housed at the end of this building. everyone new who comes to Plainville, we can share that promotional video. And they went out and did several interviews. Our own Foster White was, Chairwoman Tyrell was kind enough to defer to Foster to be the voice of the board. Several, he's got a good voice and good things to say. I'll stop. And, different performances, different, I learned some new terminology, B-roll. So they walked around the schools and got some B-roll of, good things happening. They had drones fly over each school and do some footage of the school. So I was really impressed by the crew. These three guys were amazing and just very professional. And I'm excited about what, hopefully it's going to be an amazing video that we can promote Plainville schools from a professional. We've had amazing professional students who have done it in the past who have gone on to places like, New York for school and things like that. But we no longer have those resources. So anyway, it was a great opportunity. I just wanted to let you know that happened. And we interviewed Lynn. We interviewed, Lynn LeGoik and parent, a PTO president. No one in particular. Just Mr. Sullivan was one of the interviewees. So I'm excited about it. Enough said. I'll share that with you when it's finished. And that's the end of my lengthy report.
Do you know what the timing is on that promotional video?
I don't, but I think it's going to be, it'll be over the summer, over the next few weeks. So I will be sure to share it with you first. And I hope it's really good. I think it will be.
Are there any questions on that speed lightning round of a superintendent's report?
I just have a quick question
Lightning.
from the very beginning. The $40,000 for attorney fees, did you decide if we're going to put them all to one firm or split them? Have you thought about that?
I have thought about it. It doesn't mean I have a good answer for you,
okay.
but I have thought about it. We are using more than one firm. We are using Shipman and Goodwin we're doing some work with them right now, special education situation. And for negotiations, we've been using, I can't tell you the four names on the firm, but Ken Weinstock. So what I would propose a split of that. Sam, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, if we won't lose any money, we would get it back if we didn't use it.
Right.
Okay.
So we could divide it.
Okay.
Good question.
Thanks.
Yep.
And one on the continuity of education service plan that the state's requiring by June 23rd. Are they looking for more of the logistics again, or are they looking for, what you're going to do for, what's the word I'm looking for recovering losses or both? Do you know?
Yes, it's both, and I'm pulling it up now, and you can look at it too. But just to give you an overview of the topics, there's an opening piece where there's a narrative. We talk about kind of what we did this year, and then it goes into the sections are health and safety strategies. So you talk about the mitigation strategies that you'll have in place. Again, all of those are pending the latest health requirements and guidance at the time we reopen. I expect they will change over the summer. So you kind of do the best you can with it now. Talk about what you did this year and then what your hopes are for the future, depending on the health guidance. Then continuity of services related to academic needs, student social, emotional, and mental health, staff social, emotional, and mental health, student health, and then food services. The third section is public comment. So this is where I explain how it's going to be publicly provided, and we're going to solicit comment from the public. It must be periodically reviewed at least every 6 months. So we listed the review and revisit dates there. So June 23rd is the first one of this year, December 23rd of 2021, and then June 23rd, 2022, et cetera, and so forth. And we'll adjust and amend it as we go. And then it has to be in an understandable and uniform format. So we give an explanation about that and how we offer everything in all the primary languages of our district, and it'll be clear and easy to read. And right now it's pretty short. We have some more to add to it, but I just shared the draft with you earlier today. So it's part of my report. So we're going to be finishing that up over the coming week or two. And I'll be sending a school messenger to all to the community and sharing it with the Board of Education and soliciting input in anything we might have missed. So that'll kind of be our first review on June 23rd, by June 23rd.
Okay.
It's not far away, is it? It's about a week.
I know, right? Any other questions on anything from the superintendent's report? No. Okay. That brings us to board subcommittee reports. We do not have student representatives this evening. That's okay. They've graduated and gone on to their next, Garrett will be here next year, I'm hoping. So then we have facilities finance subcommittee report. Foster, is there anything you want to report?
A rather brief report because a lot of what we went over in that meeting was just covered by Mr. LePage in his report. But we did go over the end of the year financial forecast. One point that was not mentioned earlier is that even considering all of the encumbrances, when they are met with according to Sam on the 19th, that we would be in a very good financial position that would allow for the expenditure of some of the potential savings, which went over in Mr. LePage's report. We also went over the facilities naming process. We reviewed 4 existing policies, 7211, 7221, 7551, and 7552, which will have to be brought up to date to really come into what we really need to do with our facilities naming. In the facilities planning, we also went over that. We're looking at some of the CARES funding, which Mr. LePage went over. Also, there'll be standard summer maintenance done this year, keeping our buildings in the shape that they have been brought into to meet with the COVID requirements. And also, we've received word also that the town rec department will not be using the PHH pool this summer in summer 21. We did go over the schedule which for the MSP renovation project with the discussion of whether we should be hiring an owner's project manager, and also that the definite dates for the referendum would have to be February of 22, with the application going to the state of April of 22. And we also then, as Mr. LePage indicated, we looked at the fund balance of the turf field of 93,130 and did support the addition of at least $50,000 into that fund to keep us in a good position so that we can replace that field when it has to be done. We'll have the funding for that.
Okay.
Any questions?
I was just going to, just regarding the facility naming process, there was with, when there are beloved people in the district, there are often the desires to name something after them when they leave or when they're deceased. But with as you saw earlier tonight, we have some very beloved individuals retiring, and so there had been some questions about what would it take to name something after someone. So we're Mr. Lewandowski is doing more work on looking into the policies. You've already done some of that work. Just what's usually required of naming the inside, somewhere in the inside of a building, outside of a building, after someone who's living or deceased. So I think we just need to update our policies on that and just make sure that we're all in that the board's in agreement on that. So that'll be more policy work to come, but that's all for now. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify what that's about.
Perfectly good. Thank you.
Speaking of policy subcommittee report, anything, Crystal? So all we have is our second reading, all right? Okay, thank you. There was no curriculum or outreach that I'm aware of, so that brings us to the Plainville High School liaison report. Mr. White.
Pat, yes. PAC had its meeting on May 12th. They did report that they had funding for 3 $500 scholarships, which they did award. At that point of May 12th, they had raised $1,700 on their Adopt a Senior program. They also agreed that they were getting out the senior pins for the super senior pins would be placed in the care packages of the graduating students. That the Project Brad Party was going to be a quasi amusement park. There would be a small fee for attendance to that. There was a general discussion of the proposed graduation plans, which came to pass last week. And they have a potential candidate for president and treasurer. They're looking for some other volunteers for the officers in the high school path. They did not set a meeting date for September.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to Toflon. Ms. Martinez?
Yes, Toflon had their meeting on May 27th, and they received their check for box tops for $486, and for Bay State for $40.50. Their box top year total was $783, and their Bay State total was $600. There was, of course, many fundraisers that they weren't able to have due to COVID, but they still did a wonderful job keeping some activities for the families. This month they had their family picnic on June 7th, and families gathered and they brought their own dinner. They had some inflatable slides and a DJ, and yearbooks were signed, and it was a meet and greet with their new principal. So that was a special night for the kids. They also, the big news is Bethel Hairston, the PTO president, resigned, as well as Kristen Campbell. So they did a phenomenal job this year. So they did open the floor for nomination. They did elect the new PTO board for next year. So Rebecca Preston will be president, and Melissa Steele will be vice president. Secretary will be Rachel Johnson, and co-treasurer will be Ann Tassinelli. And they haven't set a date for the September meeting yet.
Right, thank you. Lyndon, Ms. Wells?
Yeah, so you remember last time at the last meeting, the Linden PTO was reaching out for people to step up to be officers for the future, because many of the ones who are officers now are moving on to the middle school. So they did successfully get volunteers, and the new president is Nicole Michaud. The new treasurer is Jennifer Evangelista, and the new secretary is Kayla Rosado. At the end of the year, the Linden PTO financially supported the 5th grade field trip to the Bloomfield JCC and assisted with the 5th grade promotion ceremony. They published, sold, and distributed the yearbook. They provided and helped set up the inflatable climbing wall for Step Up Day. And special thanks to the facilities department for pitching in with that. They helped set up for field day and provided popsicles for the snack stations. Special thank you to Principal Wallowitz, the Linden faculty and staff in the district, this board, the Linden parents, families, and students for an amazing year. Next up, the new board will plan for the next year in a variety of forms. Also, a special thank you to Mr. Sullivan, who is leaving the PTO at Linden, hopefully to help at the middle school.
All right, thank you. And that brings us to the middle school, and that's Ms. St. Lawrence.
The MSP PTC met on May 11th. Let's see. They had a bit of officer changes. The president is Annika Cook. The vice president is Amy Porteas. The treasurer will be Jennifer Barclay, and the secretary will be Erin Soley. And they look forward, we'll miss Mr. Guarino, but we're looking forward to working with Mrs. Roberts since the fall.
Thank you. And last but not least, Wheeler Elementary, Ms. Palmieri.
Yep, I have a quick update. There's no set date for September yet, and they have not selected their officers yet that I am aware of. So that's it.
All right, thank you. I do not have a correct council report. And my chairperson's report is pretty short. First, I just want to, of course, we had a whole slew of retirees. And I think Mr. Guarino mentioned how many years of experience those folks had. And it's it's hard to see people go, but sometimes, we get some new folks that come into, and if we're careful who we hire, and someday they may be the principals themselves. You never know. That seems to be something that's happening. And I just think I went to the retirement party for Lynn Legoik, and I'm thinking, I'm going to walk in there. I'm not going to know anybody, because I know over the years, so many people have retired, and it's going to be all new staff. I'm not going to know who they are. And I walked through the door and went, not an idiot I am, because all the retirees came back. So I was like, I remember all these folks. So it was very heartwarming and wonderful, and a lot of the new folks I remembered as well. So I guess that not as much has changed as I thought. I know myself and several of the board members attended a lot of the graduations. I was able to do everyone except the middle schools. The elementaries did a really nice job here at the high school, and they all wanted to thank Mr. Johnson for allowing them to do that, and it was a really nice event for the parents and the kids up on the bleachers. And it was kind of interesting to watch the three different ways, three different principals approach the same thing, right? And the way they operate. So it was just a little telltale into like the processes that people use. So it was fun. The kids definitely enjoyed themselves, and it was a great evening. I think my favorite quote was Mr. Wallowitz said something to the effect of, a mask covers your mouth and your nose, but it doesn't cover your spirit. Yeah, I like that one. So anyway, they all did a great job, and that was wonderful to see. So that brings us to unfinished business, and this is where we have 3 policies for second reading. So if someone wants to remove them from the table, I think. I'm looking at Foster because Foster, I think you have to make all the motions because everybody else looks like they're.
We want to approve these for the second reading, is that?
Yeah, these are for second reading. Yeah.
So I would move that we take A, B, and C, the special education policy 6171 for the second reading of that, the policy of drug and alcohol testing for school bus drivers, which is policy 440, which is a new policy on the second reading, and request approval of the parent and family engagement for Title I students, which is policy 6172-5 as revised. So we approve those for a second reading.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second, Becky Martinez. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you very much. Brings us to the board open forum. Anybody like to put something in there for the good of the order?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I would like to call the board's attention to an event planned by the Anti-Racist Task Force in Plainville. It is an event scheduled for June 29th at Norton Park on a Tuesday night. It's entitled Plainville Unites. It's a celebration and conversation about diversity and inclusion here at home. It's a free event. It's going to be both a musical event with the Daughters of Nzinga, and also a key speaker, Dana Snell, will also be at that event. This is an ongoing effort of the Anti-Racist Task Force Committee in Plainville. And hopefully the board will individually support this particular event and other ongoing events that will be sponsored by the Anti-Racist Task Force. I do have some flyers for the event with me tonight. So if anybody would kindly take some of those and get those out. This is going to be just it's a new version of the pretty much traditional Tuesday night concerts that have been at Norton Park. And this is just the first of a series, but I think it is something, I know the town council has also endorsed this particular event. I would hope that the Board of Education, we would all at least individually, if not corporately, support this work of the Anti-Racist Task Force.
I'm just going to add, Foster, that you handed me the flyer, and it does say there's a rain date of Wednesday, the 30th.
Yep. Mhm.
And there's also a way to attend via Zoom on this as well.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if
And
folks can't go.
It's a type of thing as a little bit different from the Tuesday night concerts. When it rained, they were canceled. This one, hopefully it's not going to rain. But it will be that Wednesday night if that doesn't take place. And it's a type of event where you bring your own food, bring a chair, bring water, and I think that the town council has committed themselves to providing some water for the event as well. And just secondly, I would personally like to thank all of the retirees, especially the two principals. Thank them publicly for their service on behalf of the Board of Education, but also all of the students. They have had such a positive impact on their entire careers at Plainville.
Thank you.
I can turn it on.
Anybody else?
Yes. I just wanted to say that I was incredibly proud, not only of all of the work that the staff is doing, but the work that our students are doing. When I dropped off my son at Toflon on June 1st, Pride Day was being recognized with pride flags all along. It was student-led. Student did an amazing job doing a presentation, which educated staff and, age appropriately students about LGBTQ. And it was just really refreshing to see that type of inclusiveness and that it's student-led, and it shows, the future is bright with our students and how inclusive they're thinking they are.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. That will bring us to our, quarterly special education report. Mr. Adlerstein. I
I
forgot it was
don't have a
June.
lot new to add. We've been looking at this all year long, so no June surprise. We anticipate about $600,000 unfavorable in special education tuition at the end of the year that we've been planning on all year. And so that's my report. Questions?
Like you said, no
Thank you.
surprise.
No surprise. Unfavorable, but not
Yeah,
a surprise.
unfavorable, but not much you can do with that. Now, turf committee, we have to request approval for the financial realized savings request. So the presentation that we saw earlier with the plan about what we're going to do with our realized savings, I'd like to see if we can get the board to approve that document. So can we get a motion for that?
Madam Chairman, I request approval of the financial realized savings request presented by Superintendent of Schools, Mr. LePage.
Second.
And second by Nicole. Does anybody feel the need to look at it again? Do you guys, everybody knows what that was? You saw that was for the fuel and, legal costs and everything else that was on there. And turf, that's right. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you very much. Request approval for superintendent's new contract. Do we have to do that? No, I don't think we have to do that. The board did meet a couple of times this past month and discussed the superintendent's evaluation, superintendent's contract. And so we are ready to move forward with that. And I just want to say that, we acknowledged many times the fact that this was just an unbelievably difficult year. And I don't know anybody who could have worked harder or, put more into trying to make sure that the right thing was done for staff and students than our superintendent. And, it's just an impossible year. As we said many times, there were no good decisions. There was a decision that you really didn't like to make and a decision that was worse, and you had to make those decisions. And that's not something we're used to doing in education. We're used to doing, really trying to make a perfect decision or an extremely, solid decision. But that was just not out there in many cases this year. So it was a very difficult year. And so the board, I think I speak for the entire board when we want to say that we commend the superintendent for his efforts this year. And I think we give him a little round of applause. Even though he hates that, I'm sure. I'm sure he's hating that. So anyway, with the superintendent's contract, what I'd like to do is ask for a motion. We're going to do this in 3 separate steps. We're going to ask for a motion to extend the contract to 2024. Is that what we figured? That's the 3rd year out? All right. So can I get a motion to extend Mr. LePage's contract 2024?
Madam Chairman, I move we accept the superintendent's contract to mature on
2024.
June 30th,
June
2024.
30, 24.
Okay.
Second.
Is there a second? Second by Nicole. Any questions on that one? That's pretty straightforward, right? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this is unanimous. The second section would be to award a 2% salary increase. Can I get somebody to do that one?
Madam Chairman, I move we grant the salary request of 2% to the superintendent of schools.
Second.
Second, Ms. Becky. Any questions on this one?
Can I just make a statement? Okay. So I've had a really hard time with this, honestly, and I've gone back and forth, but, see, it's hard, but I've gone back and forth, on whether or not to vote for this raise. My feelings say to vote for it, but I wasn't elected for my feelings. I was elected to look at facts and make a decision. When I look at the facts, I cannot in good conscience vote for the raise. The board gave the superintendent a 9% raise last year, which is unheard of. Plainville's unemployment rate is higher than the state's right now, and I don't feel comfortable putting more burden on the taxpayers of our town. The board used the reasoning for the huge raise for our superintendent last year because they said he was underpaid in relation to other superintendents in the state. That argument can no longer be made. CT News Junkie published an article last week that the average superintendent in Connecticut makes right around $191,000 in salary. That means that our superintendent is right where he should be as far as averages go. Lastly, for the second year in a row, Superintendent LePage hasn't asked for a raise. I can only assume that he understands the financial burden people are facing from the pandemic and loves our district enough to put the children and their families first. When I asked the board who had received a cost of living raise this year or last in their personal jobs, to my recollection, no one has received one. Mr. LePage, this is not a reflection on your job performance. This is a facts-based decision.
Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Nobody can abstain from that one, right? No abstentions. Okay. So we are showing eight yeses and 1 no. Okay. The next item we had on for the contract was the vacation time. So Mr. Page will have 13 unused days as of July 1st. What we would like to do is a 5-day buyout so that he doesn't carry 13 days over because we know he's not going to be able to use that many days. Now, one of the reasons that the board is doing this is kind of something that is happening a lot around the state this year because many superintendents didn't get to use their vacation time because last year's summer was pretty much non-existent with the planning, and it was impossible for folks to use their vacation time. So we are asking for to move over 8 days and leave 1 day and buy 5 days out so that Mr. LePage would carry over 8 days for next year, and we would buy out the 5 days. Is that? Can I get somebody to make that motion? Let's do that.
Madam Chair, I move that we allow Superintendent LePage to carry over 8 days and that he is paid out for the other 5 days for this school year.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any questions or comment on that one? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That is unanimous. All right. So that takes care of the superintendent's contract. Next, we are at the consent agenda, and if there isn't anything that anyone would like to remove from there, we can go with it as a whole. Someone want to make a motion?
Madam Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, motion, is there a second? Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. And our most favorite motion, the adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second on that? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody. We will see you all in
Thank you.
September, technically.
Notice I said please.
Thank you, everyone.